Thank you so much for coming, everyone. What a wonderful, wonderful, very special day. And if you don't quite understand why, you will before we're done. I am Mark Gullin. I'm the volunteer chair of the Highway of Heroes Street Campaign, and I was there the day that Tony DiGiovanni put up his hand at a Trees for Life meeting and said, "Why don't we reforest the Highway of Heroes?" And we just thought that was a grand idea. We didn't always think it was a grand idea. There were moments. But there were better moments, there were great moments that far outnumbered the not so great moments. And so here we are, an incredible day to commemorate the completion of the Highway of Heroes Street Campaign. We're gathered here at this En Route Service Center on the Highway of Heroes in beautiful Port Hope. That's kind of neat, isn't it? Not far from Welcome, by the way. The citizens of this community were among the very first to line the highway during the Afghan conflict. What started as a movement led by first responders and a few citizens in this community, they lined our bridges, and quickly their commitment caught fire and turned into a national phenomenon where tens of thousands of people lined the highway, stood on bridges for each lost Canadian hero that made the trip by hearse down the 401 158 times. 8 years ago, we at Trees for Life came up with an idea that would help ensure that future generations of Canadians would not forget about the significance of the Highway of Heroes. We wanted to ensure that each Canadian who volunteered for military service, beginning with the War of 1812, would be recognized and honored. We would create the world's largest living monument to armed forces personnel from any country. The Highway of Heroes Tree Campaign, a tree for each of our war dead, 117,000 on the Highway of Heroes, and then another 1.8 million trees very near the Highway of Heroes for each Canadian who volunteered for military service during times of war. Sometimes I'm accused of being a bit of a dreamer. That's another way of saying a pain in the butt. But I must admit that until very recently, I couldn't allow myself to even dream that this day would be here, when we would finally set the goal of planting over 2 million trees. It seemed as though we had a marathon to run, but over Memorial Week, this week, we're celebrating the fact that we not only have hit that goal, but we've surpassed it by a great many. 2.5 million trees we have planted with a new industry standard of 85% survival rate. Now that's important to know because we planted more trees than we promised, simply because we knew not every tree was going to live right on or near the 401. Through this living tribute, we leave a lasting legacy to our nation's heroes, and today we add to our legacy by unveiling two spectacular installations, one in Port Hope, one in Trenton, to commemorate the fact that the highway corridor is now reforested with a tree for every military hero. These installations and signage will continue to educate further generations of travelers about the success of this campaign, and will ensure that the stories of our heroes continue to get told and are never forgotten. The largest living tribute to a country's military. We set a goal of raising $10 million, and while it was the private sector that initially led the charge, including donations from over 3,500 individual Canadians, many from here in Port Hope, and thank you, Rotary, for driving that from the day one. Our money came from the private sector from coast to coast to coast. And it was a combination of contributions from the province of Ontario and the government of Canada that ensured our dreams would become a reality. First, the government of Ontario, with $1 million in public funding in 2018. Then, Veteran Affairs Canada, with $3 million pledge in 2019, when Prime Minister Trudeau showed up at Camp X in Oshawa to make the announcement. And then finally, a second $1 million pledge from the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario in 2020 to help us cross our fundraising finish line. Those commitments truly are what made it real and apparent to us that our dreams would come true, Mike. Today, we'd like to acknowledge some of those government partners that made this campaign possible, and I'd like to start by calling on our first representative up here to provide some remarks on behalf of the Honourable Lawrence MacAulay, Minister of Veteran Affairs Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Member of Parliament Ryan Turnbull.
Used to this. Good morning, everyone. So it's an honor to be here in this and share in this celebration of our national heroes with you today as Remembrance Day approaches. I acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we honor all of the Indigenous people with a connection to this land. So I wanted to acknowledge, thank you, Mark, for the introduction, and it's great to be here. MP Philip Lawrence, I know Stan Cho's with us, I think Deputy Mayor Les Andrews as well, and quite a few others, Major Ian Pittman, Master Warrant Officer Nancy Chicoin, hopefully I said that right, and Ruth Abernathy, the artist and sculptor who designed the art installation, to name just a few, as well as Melanie Teed-Merck, President and CEO of En Route Service Centers. In 2001, 158 brave military individuals lost their lives while participating in our country's military efforts to secure and rebuild Afghanistan. Thousands of people stood along the highway and paid their respects as their remains were escorted from Trenton Air Base to Toronto. Canadian flags were solemnly waved as the official cars drove past. And since then, this stretch of highway, Highway 401, has been known as the Highway of Heroes, making it a strong Canadian symbol of strength, honor, and remembrance. As Canada's mission ended in Afghanistan back in 2014, the idea of transforming the Highway of Heroes into a living tribute to Canada's veterans came about and sprouted into the Highway of Heroes tree campaign. Since then, Trees for Life has planted over 2 million trees along the Highway of Heroes and in its surrounding communities in remembrance of those who have served in the Canadian Armed Forces. But that's not all these trees are doing. They are enhancing our quality of life as Canadians who live near the tree plantings. Trees lay the foundation for all life to thrive on our planet. Forests are essentially the world's lungs. In fact, trees are one of our most powerful allies in the fight against climate change. They're the ultimate carbon storage machines. They symbolize our resilience and peacefully mark the passage of time. Trees protect and shelter us, like the brave individuals of the Canadian Armed Forces. Trees mean so much to us and our planet's sustainability. There's no question that we have to protect and replenish Canadian forests, and the federal government intends to use every tool at its disposal to do so. One of these tools is to build meaningful partnerships with like-minded organizations, and Trees for Life is one of those partners that the federal government's 2 Billion Trees program is working with, and a key component of our efforts to use the nature-based solutions to fight climate change, restore nature, protect biodiversity, and ensure a safe, sustainable environment for future generations. So far in this 10-year program, we've helped organizations plant close to 30 million trees at more than 500 sites across the country. And I'm happy to say that Trees for Life has planted over 30,000 trees through the Highway of Heroes campaign as part of the 2.4 million, 2 billion trees program funding. Today we celebrate an important milestone of the Highway of Heroes tree campaign. 2 million trees planted by Remembrance Day 2022. I want to say a big congratulations on achieving your goal. 2 million trees, 2 million heroes. Thank you again to Trees for Life for your work in protecting our environment and in helping Canada reach its climate objectives. And lastly, a most sincere thank you for giving us such an inspiring space and tribute to honor the individuals who so bravely served our country. Thank you.
I'd like to shift our focus to the Government of Ontario and specifically the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario. This partnership was a keystone to our success. Not only did the MTO provide substantial monetary support for our campaign, but the process that we had to go through to find the best possible planting sites along the highway was no small task. When selecting the sites for our planting closest to the highway and on MTO land, we had to be sure that planting sites would not be disturbed, ever. This required site identification from multiple departments at the MTO. It's a big place. There are literally dozens of MTO staff that came together to help ensure that we would meet our goal of planting 117,000 hero trees, one for each Canadian lost at war, right on the highway. Thanks to the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, we've reached our goals, and for that, I'd like to say thank you to each staff member at the MTO who had a part in our success. Our next guest is here representing the MTO. Please welcome Stan Cho, the Associate Minister of Transportation of Ontario.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, MPs Turnbull and Lawrence, Deputy Mayor, and to our Rotary members, our veterans, and to our service members. Thank you for all that you continue to do to protect our country. Melanie, I'll have you know, this is the first time I've come to this en route without going inside for a Whopper or a coffee, but I can't think of a better reason to be here this morning. What an important event. I want to thank you, Mark, for founding this initiative and for all that you do, Mike, as well. This is hugely something that we're very proud of at the Ministry of Transportation. And over 2 million trees, as you heard Mark go through some of the numbers. What a lasting tribute to pay to our brave men and women who served and many of whom made the ultimate sacrifice for us to enjoy the freedoms that we do today. I'm really proud of our government's commitment. I know the Premier is a big fan of this program. As Mark mentioned, it's been $2 million in investment to help bring this campaign across the finish line. And over 100,000 trees lining North America's busiest highway from Keele Street all the way out to Trenton to represent those in uniform who gave their lives and shaped our country as we know it today. It shouldn't just be on Remembrance Day that we remember that sacrifice. It should be every day that we don't take for granted the privileges that we have in this, the best country in the world. And so this is a legacy that we are leaving behind. As MP Turnbull mentioned, the environmental benefits. But what a way to honor those lives and pay tribute by protecting our environment and reminding those who live in this great free country that we enjoy those freedoms because of those men and women. This courage, countless young people continuing to be inspired by our veterans to serve in our armed forces, to fight and protect the rights and freedoms and defend our sovereignty. And as you see some of the geopolitical instability around the world today, we should all take a moment to remember that we truly are lucky to live here, and to remember that those who fought and died for us are the reasons we get to have that incredible privilege. Remembrance Day is this week. I can't wait to see the wonderful piece of art that Ruth has created for us to live on through this memory. My parents immigrated to this great country of ours about 50 years ago. And they came here with nothing, but they, when they retired, employed 200 people and lived out the Canadian dream through a lifetime of hard work. And my dad and my grandfather, long line of service for our allies, said, never take that for granted, and I never do. And my dad always reminded me that his measure of success would be making sure that future generations have more than he had. And certainly, that's what I think of when I think about this campaign. That's what I think of when I think of our amazing veterans. Let us never forget those who sacrificed to build a better life, not just for the time, but for future generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Associate Minister Joe. And again, on behalf of everyone associated with our campaign, thank you so much to the Ministry of Transportation and to the Government of Ontario for your outstanding support. Your permission to plant trees on your land was a genesis of the Highway of Heroes tree campaign. And we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you and the people that you represent. Now, I want to acknowledge a special dignitary representing the town of Port Hope. As I alluded to earlier, it was many of the citizens of Port Hope that were some of the first to stand on bridges during repatriations. And some of those days were long and cold, colder than today. Some of those days really were. But the citizens of Port Hope were always there, waving flags, showing their respect as the procession made their way through this stretch of the highway. The citizens of Port Hope inspired thousands of other Canadians to follow suit, and so it's safe to say that they too have played a role in getting us to this point today. Here representing the town of Port Hope, please welcome Deputy Mayor Les Andrews.
Well, I don't know how cold you are, but I'm freezing. I thought, well, maybe I'll just sneak back and get my ski jacket on. Nobody would notice. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm Deputy Mayor Les Andrews. On behalf of my citizens, our staff, and Municipal Council, I'm thrilled to be here. A little story. When I first came to, I was acquiring a business in Cobourg in the early 90s. And so I had not been out to this area, and I'm coming across the 401 from Toronto, and I come to Welcome, and I said, wow, what a place, you know, you got signs welcoming you, and and I didn't realize there was a hamlet of Welcome at the time, but so it's still pretty, I still get a chuckle when I go by the sign. Our heartfelt congratulations to the people that spent the time planting these trees, 2 million trees. It's amazing. Canada is blessed. We have 3.1 billion trees, but we lose 1 million trees a year. So this 2 million tree planting will significantly help regenerate some of the losses that we incur. Now they say there's 2 times to plant a tree, today and 50 years ago. So I'm glad that today we planted the trees and tomorrow we'll plant more. And I'm thrilled to be, I'm anxious to see the creation, the artwork that Ruth has created. And so thank you, and thank you from Port Hope for coming out today.
Well, go ahead. You want to move the microphone one more time? You're welcome to do that. Well, Deputy Mayor Andrews, I took your early advice, or your earlier comment, as permission to put on my jacket. This is better. Now, it seems as though we have a marathon of speakers here today, but I want to remind you that we've had an 8-year marathon of tree planting. And so thank you for your indulgence. It was quite early in our campaign that we came to the realization that we were going to have to do slightly more than just plant trees. You see, we need to tell our story. What good, after all, are the trees, other than the environmental good, if they exist and nobody knows that they're there? Nobody knows what they're for. Nobody knows what they represent. Well, they belong to future generations. And while we may take some responsibility, all the people here today and the people that you represent can take responsibility for what we've accomplished. This is not ours. These trees are not ours. They belong to future generations of Canadians, some of whom are not even born yet, so we don't even know who they are. As those future travelers move down this highway, what are they going to think of our efforts? Well, frankly, if we don't tell them the story right here, then they'll never know. Well, we've placed a lot of plaques and signs off the highway to help support our story. En route represents our greatest opportunity for public education and the legacy of our campaign. 3 million visitors a year pass through this Port Hope en route location. And this is why we chose this location in Port Hope and the second in Trenton, where we traveled to just a little later this morning, as the home of our final component of this campaign. Awe-inspiring art installations that capture the essence of our campaign inspiration, and we just can't wait to reveal them. But before we do, I'd like to thank the En route team for collaborating and committing to this project, and for providing us with this incredible opportunity to tie a bow around the campaign. Please welcome the CEO and President of En route, Melanie Teed Birch.
I am super envious of your jacket, Mark. So it's just me that stands between you warming up and seeing this beautiful statue, so no pressure. Thank you for that. It's wonderful to have you here sharing this incredible moment at En route. On behalf of all of my Port Hope staff, to Simon and the team who've led this charge, and to Mark for being a dreamer. Never stop having a dream. Have a bias for action. Bring that dream to life with innovation, inspiration, and a wonderful gift that you've given forward for the future. It's with profound admiration and appreciation that we stand here today on this World Day of Freedom, and just 2 days ahead of Remembrance Day, lest we not forget every day to thank those that gave their life in their service, so that we can stand here with freedom, with choice, and with bias for action to have dreams. Thank you for celebrating today with us and for planting these amazing trees. And I have a personal connection to a silhouette in Ruth's beautiful sculpture. Billy Bishop, the flying ace, was my great-great-great-grandfather. And for me, this is a profound day. This day culminates planting of trees across the highway, but also representing those who volunteer for service. And with our partnerships and continued partnerships with Support Our Troops for our third year campaign, as well as our new partnerships for Trees for Life and Highway of Heroes, it is our honor and our privilege to commemorate this campaign today. So thank you for being here today, and I look forward to tens of millions of eyeballs seeing Ruth's beautiful sculpture. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Melanie. Now, seeing that it's Remembrance Week, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't hear from representatives of the Canadian Armed Forces. We're thankful that Major Ian Pittman and Master Warrant Officer Nancy Chacon of 8th Wing and CFB Trenton are here. Now, CFB Trenton marks the start of every journey down the Highway of Heroes, and the base plays a major role in how our fallen heroes are repatriated in this relatively new tradition that started during the conflict in Afghanistan. Here to say a few words about what this highway means to those who serve, please welcome Major Ian Pittman of 8th Wing and CFB Trenton.
Allow me to begin this event by acknowledging that 8th Wing CFB Trenton is on Indigenous land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territories of the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nation, who are part of the Kanien'kehá:ka community of Tyendinaga. Good morning, MP Turnbull, Minister Mulroney, Deputy Mayor Andrews, Mr. McCollum, and distinguished guests. It gives me great pleasure to be here today to commemorate the completion of the Highway of Heroes tree campaign. It is also great to be witness to the opening of Miss Abernathy's exquisite creation that shows the faces of some of the heroes who have served for numerous decades in the defense of Canada, both at home and overseas. I would like to thank all the members of the community here today, and special thanks for the great communities for their confidence and support to the Canadian Armed Forces members, and especially our members at 8th Wing. As part of the Highway Heroes tree campaign, well over 2 million trees have been planted in honor of our Canadian Armed Forces members. So I want to give special thanks to Mark Cullen, who transformed the busiest highway into the largest living tribute. The first tree was planted 8-Wing CFB Trenton in 2015. This is a significant demonstration of the support of the community. Since then, Mark, his team, and many of their partners and supporters made it possible to reach the goal of over 2 million trees in honor of all those who served, including our fallen. Although our fallen soldiers are no longer with us, these trees serve to represent how they eternally remain members of the wonderful community. A community which stands proudly behind its military and provides a vital support as we serve our country, and we are proud of our partners in these communities in which we live and serve. Your support and positive impact on our members and their families enables us and makes us stand prouder each day. It is this support that gives strength to more than 2,000 personnel deployed on more than 20 operations around the world and serve with peace of mind. Remembrance Day is approaching, and this living tribute demonstrates our history and serves to honor all those who fought for our freedom. Repatriation of our fallen heroes has a special meaning for us, since 8-Wing is the venue where hundreds of fallen have returned after making the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom in the last decades. These trees, planted by members of our community, will stand guard for all repatriated Canadians who made the ultimate sacrifice to protect and safeguard our freedom. As Canadians and as members of the Canadian Armed Forces, it is always important that we remember our past to learn its lessons so it may guide us into the future. Thank you to all for your dedication and remembering the sacrifices of so many. Thank you.
I think it's appropriate that we all take just a few moments for a brief remembrance ceremony. I ask that those in attendance take part in a moment of silence after the playing of the last post, which will be followed by the Piper's Lament and Rouse. And now the moment that we've all been waiting for is just about here, but I need to introduce somebody very important. Before we unveil the installations here behind us, I want to ask its creator to come up here and say a few words. Ruth Abernathy is a world-renowned artist and sculptor. Some of her best-known works include the Glenn Gould statue in front of the CBC building in Toronto and the Oscar Peterson statue in Ottawa, just across from our cenotaph. Just to name a couple, we're delighted that Ms. Abernathy chose to share her considerable talent with us by accepting this commission. Not just this one, but the one down the road at Trenton as well. Here and en route in Trenton, please welcome the incredibly gifted Ruth Abernathy.
Yes, thank you. You are cold, and my comments will be brief because it's nearly Christmas. So I have to say there isn't anything about this project that I don't just admire. It is such an impressive effort and a reminder that in the work that I do, I get to work with people who bring their very, very best effort. What a demonstration. It just doesn't get any better than this. Hats off to all of those already mentioned for the amazing success getting us to this point. I enter the project about 6 years into the 10-year campaign, I think, and so my comments, of course, are from the seclusion and isolation of the studio and a great many emails and the occasional road trip. And I do have a few people to thank, of course. This is Bronze, and in the middle of the whole project, the workshop was shut down and relocated to Trenton. We were offered an incredibly soft landing there, and I'm astonished, really, that we've met this deadline. Once again, the impossible is within reach. I have to thank Peter May, who was our RCI, who gave us the soft landing in Trenton. Of course, the fellow who did the bronze casting. I wish you knew more about the bronze process, because there needs to be a sharp intake of breath when you look at this because of the technical work that's involved. I am knocked sideways, and I still don't know as much as Jim knows about the bronzing process. Jim Wilson, amazing talent. Mike Hurley, incredible project management from the get-go, and of course en route. You're so much more fun in person than on a Zoom call. My notes got left at the hotel, so you have to bear with me. The idea for this project first appeared in a phone call about 2003. I'd had a call from a friend who was getting married for the second time, and he wanted a gift for his new blended family. You know, an idea doesn't really take very long. And I said, oh, well, Richard, I think I know exactly what you need. I can put structure to the space between you and your new family members. I've done it. His was done in copper, and I did it one more time in stainless steel for my parents. And yes, there were grandchildren in all of the branches. That was beyond tedious. But I think this is the most fully realized rendering of the idea, because I can work with the dimension between each of us. There is a dimensional relationship that grows, and in this case there is the permanence as well. In this particular design, it's we have 67 heroes from the Canadian Forces, represented from all branches of the military, all time periods, all genders, every conceivable slice of that incredible force that we could honor in this project. And I think that it's the perfect commemoration. And when I first spoke to the en route people, I had asked them to imagine, all good Canadian, so many moments in Canada are about Canadian road trips, and en route is the perfect place. We are drawn to these road trips because it keeps us connected. And I had asked them to imagine this thing in the garden, and perhaps it's possibly the world's largest nightlight, signifying a place of safety and renewal and security, and the purpose of these long, arduous trips to stay connected to one another. And in this case, for every tree that's planted, we recommit to the connections between us, and that's fundamentally the design. Congratulations all round. It's fabulous to imagine that this is out here doing work when I'm back in the studio in isolation working on something else. enjoy sharing it, and congratulations again. Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you, Ruth.
Counting to three. 3, 2, 1. Ruth, you have to give us an idea of what's behind the inspiration.
Okay. There's one flower on each one, which is kind of an orientation point. If you come to find your person, there will be signage like the map in a box of chocolates. So you have some way of finding the person you're seeking. There's one flower that will be identified on the signage, so you can kind of work your way around. In each case, we worked from a photograph. Honestly, most humans are not photographed in perfect profile. So some of them could be lifted directly, most of them had to be extrapolated. I did them in paper. I have to thank my sister Jean, who's here, and she did some work on the graphics portion of it. They were made to size, small, medium, large, and then over a styrene core that was like a sleeve around a center circular column. I did a great deal of pinning and rearranging, endless pinning and rearranging to fit them all in. The sleeve around the outside meant that I could cut the faces in, lift the piece away, and have a clean profile in the back, because that is where the profile rests. And then of course it all gets carved and waxed, which is the basis of lost wax casting. And then this will in fact, there's a light in the center thanks to Scott and his team, and we hope that we have the world's largest night light here in the garden forever.
And each is an image of a real...
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, like fundamentally, each of these people, this is, you know, why are there brims on all those hats? You have no idea. Brims on the hats, the nose, chin. Each of these are actual portrait profiles of Canadian service people in all time periods, and I think all divisions. So yes, come and have a look.
Really?
You're welcome.
Thank you. Just want to say amazing work.
Thank you. Get out of hearts.
Hours and hours now.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming today.
Can we get a quick
Absolutely. I'll take my coat off for that.
would be great.
Sorry.
3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh wow.
4, 3, 2.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for coming today. Yes, you're from so we got $2 million last year.
So that's the one we announced together.
Okay, and this year,
Right.
so yeah, it's natural resources. Good to us.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I see.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Number 10. No, he's a release. I've never actually. Congratulations. I had to make sure that it fit in. So that's. I think it's. Yeah, this is nice. So great. This is that kind of set up the flower. So that's our there.
We're looking for 25. And a son. Well, 25. Oh, got it.
Flowers are third one down, 3 over. I think.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Would be that way. That's the picture that I saw.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
To get your advice on how to navigate
Oh, okay, so I was thinking, because I missed the name, I was looking for a woman.
No,
Yeah, because he's got a profile that's a lot like John McCrae, who is in here, but not quite so high.
Yeah.
I haven't. Ben Clark.
Hey, his was easier because he didn't have the hat.
All those darn hats, honestly, like really, endlessly carving to try and figure out what the heck. And
That looks like him.
sure, take a picture.
That looks like him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was surprised at how distinguishable they were.
Yeah.